welcome back to my channel. My name is Vanessa if you are new here. Now I'm starting a new series on this channel called Back to Basics with That One Catholic Girl. That wasn't the name I was going to go with, but I've written so many scripts for this series already, and I included Back to Basics in every intro, so I guess that's the name of this series. But basically in this series, we're going to be talking about topics that are relevant in the Catholic Church and kind of just breaking them down to the basics. So we're going to be going over, what does Catholic mean? What does church mean? What is a sacrament? What are the 7 sacraments? And each video is going to be broken down into real bite-sized information. So if you're just Googling away and you're like, what does this mean? You don't have to sit through a 20-minute video of me explaining absolute things that you don't need to know at the moment. As you guys know, I am a youth ministry director, and so I wanted to provide information to my students that is easy to understand and is Googleable. So I'm biting 2 birds with 1 stone. That's not the phrase. I don't want to kill a bird. I don't know the right phrase for it. But basically, it's good for you guys. It's good for my students. So I'm going to stop rambling. We're going to get into the first topic, which is, what does Catholic mean? So the word Catholic comes from the Greek word katholikos, which I'm probably saying entirely wrong. Now, the word katholikos is a combination of 2 Greek words. The first one being kata and the other one being holos. Kata means concerning and holos means whole. So katholikos means concerning the whole, or it could be more simply said or explained as the word universal. That is why oftentimes you'll hear the church being referred to as a universal church. That is where we get that from, and universal translates to Catholic. Christ teaches us in scripture that he intended for his church to be universal. Although we don't see Christ technically using the word Catholic or universal or Catholicos in scripture, we understand that Christ intended for his church to be universal in his teachings about the church. Matthew 28:19 through 20, Christ commissions his apostles to make disciples of all nations, teaching them until the very end of age. Notice he mentions all nations. So this means that's going to be all over the world. And what's really interesting is that it's not only talking about right now all over the world, but all over the world for the numbers of years that the church will be on earth. Now, Christ never refers to the church as Catholic or as universal in scripture. And you may be going, aha, look, it's not the Catholic Church if you don't believe the church to be the Catholic Church. But notice Christ only ever calls the church, as he did in Matthew 16:18 when he established it. The church has always been called the church with a capitalized C, but the name Catholic is a more of an adjective for the church, meaning that's universal, and it kind of got attributed to the name church. It got attached on there because there were so many different people claiming their church to be the true church, or there were so many different denominations. So to make it distinctive, Catholic is attached to the name church. But notice that the Catholic Church is not Catholic, uppercase C, and a lowercase c church. It's always a capital C, because when we talk about the church in scripture, we're talking about an established church that Christ created. But with that being said, today's Catholics are not the only ones to ever use the word Catholic when talking about the church that Christ established. In fact, we see a very early written account of the church being called Catholic by Ignatius of Antioch. In his letter to the Cimmerians, I don't know how to say the name right, he refers to the church as Catholic. And so I'm going to read this portion of the letter to you guys right now. See that you all follow the bishop, even as Jesus Christ does the Father, and the presbytery, as you would the apostles, and reverence the deacons as being the institution of God. Let no man do anything connected with the church without the bishop. Let that be deemed a proper Eucharist, which is administered either by the bishop or by to whom he has entrusted it. Wherever the bishop shall appear, there let the multitude of the people also be. Even as, wherever Jesus Christ is, there is the Catholic Church. It is not lawful without the bishop either to baptize or to celebrate a love feast, but whatsoever he shall approve of, that is also pleasing to God, so that everything that is done may be secure and valid. Now, who is Ignatius of Antioch? Well, Ignatius of Antioch is the second bishop of Antioch. And you may be, okay, what's the significance of Antioch? Well, Antioch was the first place where Christians were called Christians. History records show that Peter was the one who ordained St. Ignatius of Antioch to be the second bishop of Antioch, following St. Peter, who was the first bishop of Antioch, who also was the first bishop of Rome, who's also the first pope. Given that Peter ordained Ignatius of Antioch, it's believed that Ignatius of Antioch learned a lot of his stuff from Peter, Paul, and John. That means that he was worshiping with the first apostles. So he had a really good understanding of what Jesus Christ wanted for his church. So this means that Ignatius of Antioch, someone that was very, very close to the first apostles, referred to the church as the Catholic Church. Now, simply because someone refers to something as something else doesn't mean that because we're referring to something as something else today that it has it's the same thing or it's the same definition. For example, I could call this bottle of Diet Root Beer, I could call it a flower. Just because I call it a flower doesn't make it a flower. But if it was by definition a flower and followed the characteristics of a flower and I were to refer to it as a flower, it would be a flower. Do you guys get what I'm saying? So just because someone says, oh, we're the true Church of Christ, or oh, we're the Catholic Church, and notice they used Catholic 2,000 years ago, that must mean that we're right. That doesn't necessarily follow. So what we could do is when we're looking for the true Church of Christ, we can go through scripture, we could go through early church documents and see what the early Church of Christ looked like. Because as we know, the Church of Christ is still around, which we'll discuss in a future video. And we'll also in future videos discuss what the Church of Christ looked like and what it looks like today. What are the marks of the church so that we can find it today among a lot of these denominations that are around. But you'll have to wait for my next episode or my episodes following to learn that information. It's probably already posted, honestly. So guys, I hope you found this video informative, and be sure to be on the lookout for the videos that are going to follow this, because we're going to work our way through the basics of Catholicism, break it down really small so it's really palatable and easy to understand. So guys, if you like this video, please give it a like, and if you like me and want to see more of me, please hit that subscribe button and also turn on that bell notification so you're notified when I post, and I look forward to seeing you guys all in my next video. Bye-bye. Bye.